Mark Rogers TV back with you with instant analysis of Ohio State and Rutgers. So instant that the game's not even over. There's 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and the Buckeyes have slipped past Rutgers, and they're hanging on to a 56-0 lead. That's why I'm doing the analysis right now, to get back to Clemson, Virginia Tech, and Oklahoma State, Texas Tech, because I've gathered very little from this game, but there are some key elements for the Buckeyes to look forward to in the next several weeks as the competition gets much stiffer. All right, it's always a constant week-to-week analysis of the passing game and JT Barrett in particular. On this night, Barrett passed to Art Schlichter, Ohio State legend from way back when in the late 70s and early 80s. Look him up, kids. He was one of Woody Hayes' last recruits at Ohio State through the infamous interception in the Gator Bowl against Clemson that led to the Woody Hayes punch that ousted the legendary coach following the 1978 season. Schlichter led the Buckeyes to the Rose Bowl and a #1 ranking the next season. He always finished in the top 5 or 6 in Heisman balloting, but never got the Buckeyes back to another Rose Bowl or national championship situation. All right, back to 2017. JT Barrett, 14 of 22, 275 through the air, 3 touchdowns. They got him out of the game right about the time that they should have, when they tacked on one more touchdown after halftime to make it 42-0. I noted a couple of flaws in JT's game, and there's going to be flaws in everybody's game, but the 8 misses, mostly not any considerable issue there. Dwayne Haskins filled in and went 3 for 6 after that with 42 yards passing in the touchdown pass, and Joe Burrow 2 for 2, and he's in the game right now. Those two, the next in line, of course, and Tate Martell is the stud from Las Vegas. All right, back to Barrett, and hopefully things stay good with JT, stays healthy the rest of the year, and Haskins and Burrow will not be needed during any important action. All right, JT missed a throw to McLaurin down the right sideline very early in the game. I would have liked to have seen in another situation, JT Barrett faced a 3rd and 9. Ohio State was leading 14-0 at the time. It was 3rd and 9. They were backed up in their own end zone had they chosen to pass. Urban Meyer played it safe. So did Kevin Wilson. They chose to run the ball. Yes, the win was secure either way. Ohio State could have been picked off there and run back for a pick 6, and they would have only led 14-7, and the score most likely right now would be 56-7. Or you expose your redshirt senior quarterback to just a difficult situation, a little bit of adversity, not compared to what he's faced throughout his career, but let him throw from his own end zone. You may need that at some point in the season. You may be backed up at your own 5-yard line. You may be facing a 3rd and long. You might be down 4 to Penn State or Michigan or somebody else. And you may be in that situation sooner than you think. Along with the Penn State game, there's a difficult trip to Iowa, and Nebraska's playing better. They don't appear to be a threat to the Buckeyes, but who knows on any given night on the road especially. Missed Terry McLaurin down the right sideline. One of those throws that JT has missed continuously most of the time over the past couple seasons. It wasn't a horrible throw. He didn't underthrow it. He overthrew it by about 2 yards, about 3 steps. But he missed McLaurin on that throw. He also made a awful throw to the right sideline on a play in the flat on a 3rd and 4 or 5, in which he should have easily converted the 3rd down into a 1st down situation. And I just nitpick here because these are plays that have to be made. No, you're not going to hit most of your downfield throws past 25 to 30 yards, but you should hit 30 to 40% of those, and Ohio State hits far less than that. I've not tracked or charted them, but far less than they need to against the better teams. We saw it already against Oklahoma. All right, point number 2 involves the running game with J.K. Dobbins, only getting 6 carries for 53 yards in this game, and he ripped off a 34-yarder early in the ball game. This is important for Ohio State. He's a true freshman, and he's been spectacular, and he is the ace of this running game. No question. He's got another gear. He has wiggle to his game. He breaks tackles. He is a tremendous player in the making. Mike Weber, more pedestrian, is still a fine back, one of the 5 or 6 best backs in the Big Ten. But J.K. Dobbins may be the second best, probably the third. I would rate him right now behind Saquon Barkley and Akram Wadley. Mike Weber, though, provides depth and relief for J.K. Dobbins. And when the games get more difficult back to back to back to back against better defenses and tougher environments, then Weber is going to be needed. And to see him healthy and contributing here with 3 touchdowns on 10 carries for 44 yards is significant for Ohio State down the road. In the perfect scenario in which Ohio State's playing a tough opponent, but they're playing well, and it's a competitive game, J.K. Dobbins gets 17 or 18, maybe 20 carries. He doesn't get the 29 that he got a few weeks back. Mike Weber gets 10 or 12 carries, as he did tonight, and it's not a one-man show. Really good football teams that compete for conference championships have 2 backs, and Ohio State apparently has that. Demario McCall with 11 carries for 103 yards, and as I was firing up YouTube, ripped off a long touchdown run of 48 yards to make it 56-0. All right, the wide receivers as a group, more confident, more sure of themselves, seem to be running crisper routes. They seem to be open, and the competition, yes, isn't what we are going to see in future weeks, but they're making better plays on the football. They seem to be competing, and this is something Urban Meyer has talked about, not just for this particular team, but when wide receivers have struggled in the past. Even the likes of Devin Smith and Michael Thomas way back early in that 2014 season against Virginia Tech. That was one of Urban Meyer's big takeaways from that game, is that his wide receivers did not compete. Well, we know what happened, and we know that they started to compete, and they took the challenge to task, and they became the players that they became. Johnny Dixon, 3 catches for $115 and 2 touchdowns. He looked impressive. Of course, he got behind the defense. It wasn't any kind of spectacular play. Much is made of certain plays when they go for long distances, but in this situation, JT took a blown coverage and basically right over the cornerback who was sucked in. Dixon got behind him. The safety didn't get over in time, and that particular play went for 70 yards. What was more impressive was a touchdown catch later by Benjamin Victor, in which he outfought the defense, contorted his body close to the left sideline and pylon for the touchdown reception. That was an impressive catch. Benjamin Victor with 2 receptions for 69 yards and that touchdown. Terry McLaurin, the aforementioned, missed down the right sideline. Not his fault. 5 for 51 for him. He was also initially called for targeting. That would have been a completely ridiculous call. And I don't like that he was actually in front of the defender chasing JT Barrett at the time, got himself enough squared up to bump shoulders and hit him. It was a clean, somewhat blindside, but shoulder-to-shoulder hit, but he got caught for that and flagged, and of course it meant nothing to the outcome of the game. McCall with a catch, Paris Campbell with a catch for 20 yards, Marcus Baugh, usually a mystery and absent in the passing game, got 3 receptions for 19 yards in this one. All right, KJ Hill with the big reception stats in last week's game against UNLV, only 1 catch for 8 yards this time around. All right, also for the Buckeyes, of course, the defense was lights out. Didn't see a whole lot of issues there. They whiffed on a couple read options early in the game, but that is going to happen. Robert Martin got a 36-yard reception in there, and Gus Edwards exploded for 22 yards. Those were the 2 big explosive plays when the game was somewhat competitive. Otherwise, the Buckeyes limit Rutgers passing to 11 of 27, and starter Kyle Bolin, formerly of Louisville, to 5 for 14 for 56 yards. So the story, Rutgers fans, if you have tuned in to hear some Rutgers analysis, is exactly what Urban Meyer talked about earlier this week in the news conference preparing for the game. Chris Ash is a guy that can build a program. We've already seen progress made over last season by leaps and bounds defensively, despite the 56 given up tonight. Rutgers came into the game giving up just 18 points per game compared to 37 per contest last year. That I don't put a whole lot of stock in. What I put stock in is the opening effort against a good Washington team that, of course, won the Pac-12 and went to the college football playoff last year, and Rutgers held them down to 30 points, and it was a very competitive one-score game until very late with 4 or 5 minutes left. Rutgers, their next game, let's see, the Scarlet Knights, after Ohio State, have a date at Illinois. That's a winnable game against the Illini, who were 28-6 losers against Nebraska. For the Buckeyes, the schedule almost works to their benefit when you think about it. The big letdown and the barometer game against Oklahoma didn't go well. They're brought back down to earth. They warm up against an Army team, then UNLV, so they're about the same class. Then they get despite the scores, forget what the scores were, that it was 54-21 last week, and they beat Rutgers 56-0. Rutgers is an improvement in terms of an opponent, and the same thing is going to happen next week. Maryland went to Minnesota today. I caught most of that game. We'll probably provide some analysis if I get a chance. Terps beat the Gophers on the road with a third-string quarterback, and that an impressive showing. Maryland has much better and more athletes than Rutgers. That game in Columbus is going to be a tougher test. And then down the road for the Buckeyes, they're going to have, again, improved competition, having to go on the road to Nebraska, into Iowa. I believe both of those games before they have to play that vaunted game against Penn State at home. Yes, it's Nebraska on the road after the Maryland game. Then it's Penn State for Ohio State. So my thoughts on the Buckeyes and the Scarlet Knights, 56-0 Ohio State, as they open up Big Ten play. Subscribe to my YouTube channel and like me on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter, Mark Rogers TV across the board. Also, the long-form discussions with some of the best bloggers and broadcasters in college football, Peter Burns, Jerry DiNardo, and a ton of contributors from SB Nation in particular. You can catch those conversations right here on Mark Rogers TV, but also the audio on Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher. Just search Mark Rogers TV. And of course, we invite your comments as well.